Mr. Secretary, when using your definition of DEI, I think there's only one individual at the Pentagon right now who got his job based on that merit, and that is you, and you got it because of sucking up to your boss. And with that, I yield back.
What you are about to see is Gil Cisneros, a congressman from California, standing directly in front of Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and not holding back for even 1 second. Gil Cisneros goes through everything: classified leaks, military troops sent where nobody asked for them, service members being pushed out. And he ends with a line about Pete Hegseth personally that made the entire room go quiet. This is one of the most direct confrontations between a congressman and a cabinet secretary we have seen in a long time, and every word of it matters.
I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, so many topics to cover. I represent California's 31st District, located in Southern California, where you've deployed the National Guard and Marine Combat Battalion in an effort by this administration to provoke a confrontation. God only knows for what reason. As my colleague from Tennessee mentioned, the military has been activated before by the president, but let's tell the whole story. President Johnson federalized the troops after the governor of Alabama activated them to keep black students out of the University of Alabama. President Johnson did it so the students could attend the university. He did it for the right reason. He corrected a wrong. California did not ask the president for help, and the presence of the military is an effort by this administration to intimidate and incite fear and violence amongst its citizens. You failed at ensuring basic operational security by sharing classified data over an unclassified network. This was blatant, lazy, and put service members' lives at risk. And knowing that your office is a SCIF, I hope you are not bringing in your devices, your personal cell phone, or even your work phone, because that's not supposed to be in there either, right, your cell phone, into your office to send these signal chat texts. Your blatant lack of basic OPSEC would have gotten you forced you to resign from any other administration. You're requiring 8% cuts across all services, not to save the taxpayers money, but to fund President Trump's pet projects. You talk about quality of life for service members, but yet you take $1 billion away from the Army that was meant to improve their barracks and their living. You said that money waste, but we don't know that yet because we haven't seen a budget. If the president has projects he wants funding for, you need to come before this body and provide reasoning, not just shift money around. Right now, you are stealing from our service members, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now you have repeatedly said that you will judge every individual on their merit. Is that true?
Unlike the previous administration,
you will
yes,
judge
we are focusing
simple yes
on,
or no.
For our service
Judge
members,
everybody
how
on their
good they
merit.
are at their job, yes.
But yet you are separating thousands of service members who are performing and doing their job at a high level. They are being separated not based on merit. You know, some of them have been recommended for early promotion and have gotten awards and are doing a great job, but you are separating for no other reason, and frankly, I think you just don't like them. And you are classifying many of them as a national security threat, which is simply not true. You asked the Secretary of the Navy to change the name of the ship, because Harvey Milk didn't meet your definition of warrior ethos. If a Korean War veteran and a Navy diver who gave his life for standing up for his beliefs doesn't meet your definition, I don't know what will. You keep talking about recruiting, but let's face the facts here, right? Recruiting started improving before President Trump even came into office, and the reason that changed was because of the investment that was put into recruiting. Now, I was at the Pentagon at the time, and I know how much we invested in it, and I know how much of the services. And when you take away that investment, you're going to get exactly what happened in President Trump's first administration. In 2019, we had the same recruiting crisis that, back in 2019 when he was president the first time. You continue to attack diversity, but I have always said diversity is about creating opportunity. And I have seen plenty of individuals, many of them enlisted members, who when given the opportunity have succeeded, not because of their sex, not because of color, not because of their sexual identity, but because of their worth ethic and merit. Mr. Secretary, When using your definition of DEI, I think there's only one individual at the Pentagon right now who got his job based on that merit, and that is you, and you got it because of sucking up to your boss. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
Okay, so let us talk about what just happened there. First, the tone. Gil Cisneros does not come in angry. He does not raise his voice. He does not perform for the cameras. He speaks like someone completely sure of himself, like someone who has prepared, and is not afraid of Pete Hegseth sitting across from him. That kind of calm is actually more powerful than anger, because it tells the room, and everyone watching at home, that Gil Cisneros means every single word. Now look at how he starts. He does not open with a question. He opens with a picture. He puts National Guard troops and Marine combat battalions right inside his own district, in Southern California. And he tells Pete Hegseth directly, nobody asked for this. That move is smart, because it makes the issue real right away. This is not some faraway policy debate. This is happening in Gil Cisneros' community, to his people, and he wants Pete Hegseth to sit with that. Then Gil Cisneros brings up President Johnson and Alabama. He talks about how Johnson used federal troops to let black students into the University of Alabama when the governor was physically blocking them. He is drawing a direct line between a president who used military force to correct a wrong and what Pete Hegseth's Pentagon is doing right now, which Gil Cisneros says is using that same force to intimidate American citizens. Same tool, opposite purpose. That contrast is clean and simple, and it is very hard for Pete Hegseth to argue against it, because the history is accurate. Then comes the signal chat moment, and this is where Gil Cisneros gets personal with Pete Hegseth. He does not just call it a mistake, he calls it blatant and lazy and dangerous to the lives of American service members. And then he looks directly at Pete Hegseth and asks him flat out whether Pete Hegseth brings his personal phone into a classified space, because that is not allowed either. That is not just a policy question, that is Gil Cisneros challenging Pete Hegseth's basic competence, out loud, in front of the entire committee. Pete Hegseth's answer is short and uncomfortable, which tells you the question hit exactly where Gil Cisneros wanted it to. Then the money. Gil Cisneros goes after Pete Hegseth on the 8% cuts across all military services and the $1 billion pulled away from Army barracks, money that was supposed to go directly to the places where service members sleep and live every day. Gil Cisneros calls it stealing from service members and uses the phrase robbing Peter to pay Paul when describing what Pete Hegseth is doing with money that was never his to move. That kind of language is simple and sharp, and it is designed to be shared and remembered, especially by military families watching at home. The yes or no exchange is worth slowing down on. Gil Cisneros asks Pete Hegseth a simple question. Do you judge people on their merit? Pete Hegseth says yes, and then Gil Cisneros immediately turns that answer around on Pete Hegseth completely. He points out that thousands of service members are being removed from the military right now, even though they are performing at a high level, even though some of them have been recommended for early promotion, even though they have received awards for their service. These people are not being separated because of poor performance. They are being separated for other reasons entirely. Gil Cisneros set a trap. Pete Hegseth walked right into it, and the whole thing happened in under a minute. The Harvey Milk ship moment is short, but it is pointed directly at Pete Hegseth's judgment. Gil Cisneros describes Harvey Milk as a Korean War veteran, a Navy diver, a man who gave his life, standing up for what he believed in. And he asks Pete Hegseth directly, if that does not meet your definition of warrior ethos, then what does? Pete Hegseth does not have a good answer, and Gil Cisneros does not wait for one. He just leaves the question sitting there in the room. The recruiting argument is where Gil Cisneros stops making opinions and starts correcting the record on Pete Hegseth's narrative. He says the recruiting numbers were already improving before Pete Hegseth or this administration came in, because of money and investment that was already in place. And he warns Pete Hegseth directly that pulling that investment away will bring back the exact same recruiting crisis that happened in 2019 during Trump's first term, when Pete Hegseth was not yet in the picture. That is a specific claim attached to a specific record, and it takes the conversation away from feelings and puts it onto facts. And then the ending, and this is the part people will be talking about. Gil Cisneros redefines diversity in plain terms, not about checking a box, not about race or gender as a shortcut, but about giving people a real opportunity and watching them succeed because of their work ethic and their merit. And then he turns the whole argument directly onto Pete Hegseth. He says there is only one person at the Pentagon right now who did not get their job based on merit. He looks straight at Pete Hegseth and says he got the job because of sucking up to his boss. That final line about Pete Hegseth is what people will remember from this hearing. Not because it is the most detailed policy point, but because it is the most direct personal moment. Gil Cisneros looking Pete Hegseth in the eye, in front of the whole committee, and saying out loud, "I know exactly how you got here, and it was not because you earned it." So who does this help politically? Democrats who want to draw a contrast on military competence and troop welfare will use this clip of Gil Cisneros and Pete Hegseth all over social media. Veterans and military families watching the fight over barracks funding will find language here they can repeat themselves. And anyone who has been following the Pete Hegseth Signal chat scandal will see it framed here, not as a simple mistake, but as a direct question about Pete Hegseth's character and whether he is fit for the job. Pete Hegseth does not have a strong moment in this exchange. His answers are short, easy to look past, and never really push back on what Gil Cisneros is saying. The format of a congressional hearing always favors the person asking questions, and Gil Cisneros uses every single second he has. So here's the question we want to leave you with. After watching Gil Cisneros go directly at Pete Hegseth like that, do you think more members of Congress should be this direct in these hearings? Or do you think moments like this are more about the clip than about any real change? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we slow everything down and look at exactly what is being said and how and why, hit subscribe, because we cover every moment like this, every single time it happens.